In this video, we're doing a faction focus on Algeroth. Hi all, and welcome to the cabin. Today we're taking a look at the Algeroth faction in Warzone Eternal. We'll go through the units, general tactics, and also take a look at a few different armies that you could field. But let's start with the lore and dive into what Algeroth is all about. In the Mutant Chronicles universe, none of the factions are truly the good guys, but there is one faction that is basically pure evil, the Dark Legion. There are actually 5 sub-factions within the Legion, each one representing the armies of one of the Dark Apostles. Currently, only one of them is supported in Warzone Eternal, and that is Algeroth, the Apostle of War and the Lord of Dark Technology. His power is second only to Ilion, and his legions are the most numerous of all the armies of the Dark Soul. In Algeroth's service, Techrons toil with the creation of all technology used by the Dark Legion. They corrupt human inventions, reanimate dead organic material, and twist living creatures into new hideous forms. The servants of Algeroth also use the aura of power known as the Dark Symmetry to rain unholy fire and destruction upon their foes. They can even open gates to other dimensions and darker planes of existence in order to summon strange and deadly creatures, making Algeroth's armies full of monsters that are terrifying to face on the battlefield. I'm definitely no expert, but I've played a handful of games with Algeroth now and have learned a thing or two about the army. Let's take a look at the different units currently available in the Algeroth list. Every force needs troops, and Algeroth has 2 different choices. The Undead Legionnaire is the cheapest unit in the entire game, clocking in at 2 DP. That means you can field a lot of them in your force, but keep in mind that they have Group 3, which limits the number of activations you get from them. Their stat line is not very impressive, basically being the worst in the entire game right now. Legionnaires are relentless, so they can't receive pinned counters, which seems like a great rule. However, the zombie ability means that they can never perform a reaction, which limits their usability and reduces Relentless to simply allowing them to always move closer to an enemy unit. Add to that the fact that unless they are within range of a friendly unit with the controller ability, they also can't reposition, aim, climb, interact, or reload. Legionaries are neither flexible nor reliable, though they can be used as distractions. In greater numbers, you might be able to land a few lucky shots or strikes, which both have an okay damage output. The Necromutants cost twice as much as Legionnaires at 4 DP, but boy are they a lot better in the game. Besides movement and wounds, all stats are significantly better and their weapons are deadlier as well. Add to that their Fearless ability, which means they can react even when pinned, and you have a much more reliable unit. The enemy always has to consider ambushes and counterattacks from your Necromutants, and on the charge, they get Close Combat 15 and Damage 16, which is nothing to scoff at. They can also keep Legionaries in line with their controller ability, albeit only within 6 inches. Algeroth has access to a lot of different leaders, the cheapest being the Necromutant leader. These require 1 Undead Legionnaire to field, but still only cost 4 DP and are identical to their trooper counterparts with 3 exceptions. They grant 1 SP, can command legionaries, and, like most leaders, can inspire friendly units. While the other leaders we're about to look at are more impressive, it's good to have a cheap option like this for removing pinned and reaction counters in your force. Next up, we have the Centurion, clocking in at 6 DP and requiring 1 Undead Legionnaire or 1 Necromutant Trooper to field. I'd argue that these should be your go-to leaders for many force configurations, as they grant 4 SP for those tempting support units we'll cover later. They can also command both Necromutants and Legionnaires and have a longer controller range of 9 inches. Besides armor and power, all of their stats are better than a Necromutant's, and their weapons are deadlier, albeit with a shorter range. It's in close combat that they really shine, with Reach 1 and Reposition giving them an 8-inch charge range, and Fierce Charge granting them Close Combat 17 and Damage 16. Centurions also carry smoke grenades, which can help you create some line-of-sight blocking areas on the battlefield. They are the first unit so far with a good leadership stat too, giving them a 75% chance to take objectives. That's great since we don't have an equivalent to operators in this army. Recently, we also got access to a unique Centurion called Morgas. This leader costs 1 more DP and only grants 3 SP, while also requiring 3 Undead Legionnaires to field. In exchange for these nerfs, Morgas has a higher power stat, gas grenades instead of smoke grenades, and an even longer controller range of 12 inches. However, it's the training ability that really makes him worth considering, as this gives every single Undead Legionnaire in your force the Fierce Charge ability. That means the humble 2 DP zombie can cause damage 15 on the charge, which isn't bad. If you're planning to field quite a few Legionnaires in your force, Morgas is a good option, but otherwise I'd stick with a normal Centurion. Also costing 7 DP is the Nasal, requiring 1 Necromutant Trooper to field and only granting you a single SP. In terms of stats, if we compare this unit to a Centurion, the Nasal has a lower power but higher close combat, missile weapon, and leadership. The ranged weapon bonuses even out the missile weapon stats between these two units though, but the Belzarak assault rifle grants a better range for the Nasal. They also have frag grenades instead of smoke grenades for a more offensive focus. In terms of abilities, Centurions and Nasal are very different. The Nasal lacks Controller, Fierce Charge, and Inspire, making them less tactically flexible and a poor choice for forces with lots of Legionnaires. But they can command both Centurions and Necromutants and can react even when pinned, just like the Necromutants. Their determination in combination with Leadership 16 gives them an 80% chance to interact successfully with objectives and allows a reroll if they fail. In fact, their training ability gives determination to all Necromutants in your force, which greatly increases their chances of scoring objectives too. Nasal also have Rebreather 5, which helps them survive attacks from gas grenades. We then have a variant called the Alpha Nasal, which is identical in terms of cost and stat line. It carries the Groganak Assault Pistol, which is a nice short-range, mid-damage weapon with burst too, and also has an underslung gas launcher with a whopping 36-inch range. A great way to get gas grenades right where your opponent doesn't want them. The special feature of the Alpha Nasal is that it gives Centurions Fearless, and also grants access to an asset, which can give 2 Centurions per Alpha Nasal in your force the Trooper designation instead of Leader, giving you the option of choosing these to unlock the Alpha Nasal instead of a Necromutant Trooper. You could potentially field a completely fearless army of elite soldiers this way. For our final leader choice, we have the Nephirite, weighing in at a ridiculous 13 DP to field. It also requires 4 Legionnaires or Necromutants, meaning that even if you go with the cheapest option, more than half the points of a standard 40 DP force must be spent just to unlock the Nephirite. That said, this is a beast of a unit, with the best stat line in all categories besides defense and missile weapon, though it won't use the latter for anything anyway. The Nephirite can command any Algeroth unit, which can come in very handy, has a 12-inch controller range, just like Morgas, and can inspire friendly units. Awareness enables it to react twice in a turn, unless it gets pinned, of course. However, thanks to Nerves of Steel and Shake It Off, the Nephirite can still move closer to enemy units when pinned, and will automatically remove the counter during the next start turn phase. In close combat, it has an effective charge range of 9 inches due to the Azogar's Reach 2 and Reposition. On the charge, the enemy has to deal with close combat 16 and damage 17. And thanks to Vicious, if the enemy unit has a wound counter, this reaches close combat 18 and damage 19. Or potentially even higher for 3 or 4 wound models. And due to multi-strike, the Nephirite can attack up to 3 different enemy units at the same time. With a base size of 50mm and reach 2, that's an area on the battlefield equivalent to a threat zone created by an explosive 2 weapon. To top it all off, it has the Devouring Darkness, a dark symmetry ability that is rolled with target number power and tested against the enemy's leadership instead of armor. Alright, now it's time for the support units of Algeroth, of which we currently have 4 choices. The cheapest option is the Necromutant Tormentor, which costs 4 DP and 1 SP to field. The stat line is identical to the other Necromutant units, but do note that this is the only variant that doesn't have the controller ability. Otherwise, the main difference is the loadout, as this unit is armed with a Tormentor flamethrower, which is very good. It has a 10-inch range with missile weapon 15 thanks to the weapon bonus. And since it's projected, it can make shoot tests against multiple targets in the threat zone. It also ignores obstruction penalties and therefore any camouflage as well. Add to that damage 14 and continuous, granting you an additional hit if the enemy fails the armor test, and you have a very deadly close-range weapon. They also carry gas grenades, and if you don't want an Alpha Nasal or Morghast as your leader, this is the only way to get them in an Algeroth army. I definitely recommend a Tormentor or two for your force. Next, we have the Immaculate Fury, which will cost you 8 DP and 1 SP to field. These larger creatures are more durable than a Necromutant and are also completely immune to gas grenades. They are pretty good at inflicting pinned counters on enemy units, at least at close to mid-range. Their stat line is good, but they unfortunately grant a +1 defense bonus to the enemy when targeted. Like the Necromutants, they can react even when pinned, and they are also aggressive, allowing them to move 2 inches towards an enemy unit they can see after taking a shoot action. Furies have the Soulless Shriek, which is another projected weapon, but not nearly as deadly as the Tormentor flamethrower. It is, however, a Dark Symmetry ability rolled with target number power, which takes it up to 16 due to the weapon bonus. Damage is only 10, but thanks to Concussive, it's an auto-pin even if you fail the shoot test. The Soul Sharer is less accurate, but if you succeed with the shoot action, the armor test is rolled against the enemy's leadership, which is nice. Also, if you manage to kill the enemy, other units within 3 inches must take a target number leadership test or receive pinned counters. A slightly more expensive unit is the Praetorian Stalker, which will set you back 10 DP and 2 SP if you want to include it. And to unlock the Pack Hunter ability, you have to take 2 of them in your force. That's half of your DP and 4 SP spent on just these, but it does allow them to react twice if they are within 8 inches of each other. Their stat line is a step up from the Furies, with everything except strength being the same or in many cases better. Besides having a movement of 5, Stalkers are also aggressive, making them really maneuverable. They're also harder to hit, with a defensive value of -1 as well as camouflage 1 to really help you avoid incoming attacks. I'd say that this unit is one of the most versatile in the Algeroth list, as the Scythe of Semai features a bayonet, a Burst 3 light machine gun, a 36-inch grenade launcher, and a flamethrower. That's pretty much a weapon profile fit for any situation you might find yourself in. And if you get a crit fail, you don't necessarily want to reload immediately, as you can just use one of the other profiles for your next attack. Combine this with precise senses, which ignores enemy camouflage, and an OK leadership for taking objectives, and you have a Swiss Army knife support unit that can be a real pain for your opponent. Stalkers don't have any abilities to counter the pinned status though, so beware of that weakness and use leaders to inspire them. Finally, we have the most expensive support unit, the Razid. This big baddie costs 12 DP and 3 SP to field, which is even more costly than taking both an Immaculate Fury and a Necromutant Tormentor. In terms of stats, they have the highest armor in the Algeroth list, combined with 4 wounds, making them tough to damage. They do, however, give the enemy a +2 defense bonus, so they are quite easy to hit. Driven means they won't get pinned from suppressive weapons, and Shake It Off allows them to remove pinned counters during the start turn phase, so they can counter the pinned status a bit better than, say, the Praetorian Stalkers. Razids basically act as slowly moving heavy weapon platforms, and their firing stance ability allows them to ignore recoil, so they don't have to waste an action on brace. However, their average missile weapon of 12 doesn't make them that accurate to begin with, and burst weapons can't be aimed either. The Razid comes with 3 weapon options. The Nazgaroth has burst 3, damage 15, and a range of up to 48 inches, which covers the entire board in Warzone Eternal. Put the Razid on high ground and you pose a threat to any unit in your opponent's force. But do count on missing quite a few of those shots, and pray to Algeroth that you don't get any crit fails. He hasn't listened to my prayers so far though. The Algeroth goes up to burst 4, but is even less accurate at long range and only has damage 13. I'd go with the Algeroth any day. The last option is the Hellblaster launcher, which actually lowers the unit's SP cost to 2. It has the same level of accuracy as the Algeroth, but only has a 36-inch range and damage 13. It is, however, explosive and suppressive, so you could potentially hit multiple enemy units or focus on a single target and auto-pin it. And thanks to being vicious, it will get bonus damage against wounded targets as well. You're not making the most of your firing stance here though, so I'd probably still go with the Algeroth if I had the SP for it. Well, that's all the units available for Algeroth at the time of making this video. We've seen a couple of future releases teased though, in the form of the Ghoul, a huge quadrupedal monster, and the Reaver APC, a troop transport with a turret-mounted Algeroth. It's going to be very exciting to see what the future holds for the Algeroth faction and the game in general. We also have access to 6 assets when building an Algeroth force. The first 3 Necrotech assets can be taken by any Dark Legion force, meaning other Dark Apostles as well in the future. The Carcass suit grants an automatic damage 7 hit when charging an enemy. Self-repair allows a unit a 50% chance to regain a single lost wound when it is activated. And subdermal implants give +1 armor but can only be taken by units with armor 22 or less. For the Algeroth-specific assets, we have Invoke Frenzy, which allows a unit with command to temporarily give Fierce Charge to friendly units within 12 inches. Distort allows a unit to have a 2-inch bubble for a single turn that gives enemies -2 to close combat, strength, and leadership. Finally, we have Alpha Legionnaire, which gives an Undead Legionnaire +1 to close combat and missile weapon, as well as a 3-inch controller ability. When building a 40 DP force, here are some general points to consider. I'd argue that it's good to have at least 2 leaders for several reasons. If you roll lead from the front and only have a single leader, you're not able to score any VP if that unit is killed. The same goes if you choose the Send a Message secondary objective. Regardless of that, it's really good to have access to Command and Inspire on the board, as well as training to enhance the rest of your army. When playing with Legionnaires, all leaders except the Nassau also have Controller to make your zombies more effective. If you're low on DP to spend, maybe just add an extra Necromutant leader. Also consider the number of activations you have in your force. You don't want your opponent to have significantly more than you, and the group ability can affect this. I'd say 6 activations is a minimum for a 40 DP game, but it's probably better to have at least 7 or 8 if you can manage it. Smoke and gas grenades can be really good for covering your advance and denying the enemy passage through certain areas, so it's a good idea to include 1 or 2 units with access to them. Finally, the key positions and sabotage scenarios, as well as the intercept transmission's secondary objective, require you to perform target number leadership interactions in order to score VP, so it's a good idea to include a few units with higher leadership or determination. Let's look at a handful of lists, starting with a basic force. Here we have a Centurion leader, a Necromutant leader, a Necromutant trooper, 5 Undead Legionnaires, an Immaculate Fury, and 2 Necromutant Tormentors. That's 8 activations, and I've pretty much ticked all the boxes that I just mentioned. It doesn't have any heavy firepower, but it should otherwise be versatile enough to cover most situations. Next, I tweaked the basic list a bit to include a Nephirite leader with the self-repair asset for added resilience. There's also a Centurion leader, a Necromutant trooper, 4 Undead Legionnaires, and 2 Necromutant Tormentors. That's 7 activations and a list with some really dangerous close combat potential. Here's a list built around a pair of Praetorian Stalkers, with a Centurion leader, a Necromutant leader, a Necromutant trooper, and 3 Undead Legionnaires. Because half the DP is spent on the Stalker twins, we only have 6 activations here, but hopefully their unlocked double reactions can compensate for that. Continuing with the theme of multiple heavy hitters, here we have a Centurion leader, a Necromutant leader, 2 Undead Legionnaires, a Razid, a Praetorian Stalker, and a Necromutant Tormentor. That's once again only 6 activations, but we have several dangerous and resilient units for the enemy to deal with. Oh, and I actually put the wrong weapon on the receipt when filming this. We only have enough SP for a Hellblaster launcher. Finally, I've made a Necro Assault list with an Assault leader that has subdermal implants for extra armor, a Necromutant leader, 5 Necromutant troopers, and 2 Necromutant tormentors. That's 9 activations, which is almost the highest you could get out of an Algeroth force. This entire force has determination and fearless, without any Legionnaire cannon fodder, but it also doesn't have any heavy weapons or tough monsters. These lists are just the tip of the iceberg though. On the Discord server, Robert SJF suggested a list cramming in as many undead Legionnaires as possible, and Collar suggested a list with 6 Tormentors. There are so many possibilities and combinations, which is what makes list building so much fun. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and tune in next Sunday for the final video in our Summer of Warzone series. We'll see you next week. Good luck with your miniatures.